Welcome to my channel. Today I'm going to tie 4 flies for sea trout. The hooks I use are Streamer Stronghold from Tyrell. This is a size 2 hook. I will make 2 slightly larger flies using size 2 and 2 slightly smaller flies using size 4. First, I make a small tail. The material I use for this is gray fox. For the body, I use long-haired chenille UV pearl. Maybe not the best material for a body, but it doesn't hurt to try a few different variations. For the wing, I use white synthetic material that has about the same properties as the temple dog. I start by tying the wing forward and then fold it back after I have secured it with about 10 turns of tying thread. I do this partly to make the wings stick better to the hook and partly to add some volume to the fly. Once I have attached the wing, I build a small head using the binding wire. This is what the fly looks like when it is wet. Since the next fly is expected to be completely white, I use white marabou as the tail. For the body of this fly, I also use chenille, but not as long-haired as it was on the previous fly and not as sparkly. Finally, I make the wing from the same synthetic material that I used for the first fly and build a small head using the binding wire. This is how the second fly turned out, quite similar to the first fly. Time to tie the third fly. On this fly, I use green marabou as a tail. For the body of this fly, I use the same type of chenille that I used for the previous fly I tied. I also want this fly to be white, so for the wing the choice is the same type of synthetic material that I used for the other 2 flies. This is what the third fly looks like in water. Time to tie the fourth and final fly. For this fly, I use temple dog for both the tail and the wing. No, I don't actually buy hair from temple dog. These are very old pieces that have been in the fly tying box for 20 years. This fly should not be white. It should be black, yellow, and blue with a white body. For the tail, I use black hair, and for the body, the same long-haired chenille that I used on the first fly. I tie the wing in 2 steps. First, I tie in a yellow wing, and on top of this a slightly thinner blue wing. This is how the last fly turned out. A tasty morsel for a sea trout, or what do you think? Before it's time to attach the holographic eyes to the fly's heads, I flatten the heads using a vise. Once I've clamped the fly in the vise, I add a few drops of superglue so that the head will hold its shape when I remove it from the vise. Now it's time to attach the eyes. To make it easier to attach, I turn the fly so that one side of the head is facing up. Then I put a few drops of superglue where the eye will be placed. Before the glue has time to dry, I put the eye in place. Then I repeat the same steps on the other side. Now it's finally time to apply the epoxy. Before I apply the varnish, I put a small tube on each fly for two reasons. Firstly, the tube prevents parts of the wing from getting stuck in the head. Secondly, the tube prevents the epoxy from flowing into the wing. If the latter happens, the wing will become immobile when the epoxy is hardened, and then the fly is ruined. I also protect the hook eye with some masking tape. To help distribute the epoxy evenly on the head, I use a jig that I built in a rod drying machine. When the epoxy has been on for a little over an hour, I remove the masking tape from the hook loops. By then, the epoxy has hardened enough that it doesn't flow into the loops. This is what the flies looked like after painting with epoxy. Not the prettiest epoxy heads I've made, but I think the sea trout don't care.